Hello and welcome to Raising Anchor, your podcasting source for all things Rhode Island FC. I'm your host, Matt Entrikin. Joined with me is the co-host, Jason Carey, and this is your Monday Mailbag for September 29th, 2025. Jason, it's the last show of our Monday September series. I don't even know how many more of these Monday Mailbags we'll have as we start to wind down here, now on the outside of the playoff line, looking back in. First and foremost, how was your weekend, and are you excited to get back to these mailbags?
Yeah, definitely. It was a great weekend. Had a great time at the Big E. Pretty chill Sunday. I'm agreeing with Tim here. It almost feels past my bedtime. Aren't we supposed to be done with the pod right now?
Yeah, well, if we're lucky. Normally we run these things pretty late, but to be fair, we were on the Blazing Musket podcast, and sometimes that roundtable coincides with this one. Hasn't been a problem in the past because normally we have a player interview, but didn't get one of those this last week. So trying to do a mailbag live versus a pre-recorded, just to see. Also curious, what do our online numbers look like later on? There's been conversations. We always listen to feedback. We know we run too long. That may change in a very dramatic way here in the new year. We'll talk about that more kind of towards the off season, but we're always looking at what time do we go on. We see the numbers usually start to peak a little bit deeper into the show around that 9 o'clock hour. So always fun to tinker, but we always listen to people too. So if you guys ever tell us, hey, 9:30, way too late, we want these shows a little bit earlier in the night, we can always do that. So let's get right into this and start talking about this game. Rhode Island FC somehow draws 2-2 against El Paso Locomotive down in Texas. There's a lot of different things we could pull apart here. What were your initial impressions? Like, what's the joke that you've been thinking about all week to go into this pod?
I don't know a joke. I think it's funny that we scored 3 of the 4 goals, though. I mean, also maybe a little
That's
depressing.
Definitely not a joke. That's definitely just sadness manifested.
It's the truth, though.
I said it online. I'll say it here. Clay Holstead, when he sees the goal, he can't help but score. Sometimes we just don't want him looking back at ours, and it's as simple as that. There's a lot. I mean, let's talk about the goals, right? You said it rightfully so. We technically scored 3-1. First and foremost, it was great to see JJ Williams get his 4th goal, now beating out own goal. We finally have an RAFC player back on the top of the mountain.
Is that actually the curse right there? Because own goal got dethroned, he had to score against
us. Do we have to count own goal in both columns, whether it's for or against? Own goal giveth, own goal taketh.
Maybe.
I mean, I'm okay with using that stat. If we want to say he's once again tied with JJ Williams, I'm completely fine with that. But then also we see Zach Haribo get a goal, very reminiscent of how he got the goal last season. I think it was against. Was it Indy?
It was one of the teams he played for. It was either Tampa or Birmingham.
It would have been Birmingham then, because it wasn't Tampa. So then, or maybe it was Tampa. It doesn't matter. Very reminiscent of that goal he scored last year, up in that high press, deflects the kickoff from the goalkeeper, goes into the net. Same thing here. I've told you, and we've talked offline several times about the dangers about playing out at the back and how that doesn't lead to as many goal-scoring build-up sequences as it does lead to many more transition counter goals that immediately punish a team trying to play out the back. Saw that firsthand with El Paso. That gives Zach Haribo his 2nd goal of the regular season. Still behind own goal, no matter which way you look at it. Exciting, though, we did also see Noah Fuson finally get an assist, the golden playmaker, back on the board with the assist. I don't know if he can catch his numbers from last year with only 4 games to go. Probably not.
He's finally starting to look a little bit better like himself. Right before that goal happened, he did the same thing, and he almost curled it to the that far corner.
Was that the one that went off the post?
It went off the post, and then Chico was trying to come in, but couldn't get there in time to kind of poke it in.
It's funny because we were winning at that point in the game, and I remember, I don't remember which fan came up to me, but they were like, "Oh man, it's okay. He's just warming up. He's going to score that next week when we really need it." I was like, I don't know, man. I think we need to score every single goal we can right now and use that to shake off the rust. Sure enough, the own goal happens just a few minutes later, and I looked at it. Maybe it was Matt Jean. Matt, I see you here with your Raising Anchor After Dark comment. Let me know if that was you and I having that discussion, because immediately I was just like, this is why you score every single goal that you can. It's a story as old as time with this team, Jason. I mean, on one hand, It's great. We scored multiple goals for the first time since North Carolina in June. Was it June 14th? June 14th, we finally score. You could argue one of those goals wasn't from the run of open play. So you got to go further back to the Tampa Bay game where we scored 3 from outside the box. And that was in May. So it was May 15th was the last time that we scored 2 goals from the run of play. How many games do you think we've scored multiple goals this season?
Like 3.
I appreciate that you're now so low on the team that you don't have the ability to have faith that they've done it more times. It's actually been 5 times.
Okay.
It's been 5.
Are we counting Jägermeister?
No, just in championship. Unfortunately, not all of them. You would think with that limited number of goals scored, most of those would be wins. Unfortunately, now this is the second one where we've drawn. So it was Phoenix. Phoenix Rising was a 2-2 with an own goal in that game. And then now here with this El Paso game, the other ones are North Carolina, the Oakland Roots, and then the Tampa Bay game. So that's our 5 games where we've scored at least 2 goals or more. Did not get 3 games in a row of a win streak. Took points, but didn't quite get it across the line. We talk about the goals at length. I know there's a couple of really good questions about Koke in particular. Overall, did that game feel that we were moving in the right direction, or did that game feel like pure chaos? And we held on. We did what we had to do. We should have gotten the win. I would argue that's probably one of a few games this season where we deserved a win, but it didn't just quite happen. Overall feelings and thoughts and impressions of the match.
I mean, I think it was a lot of chaos. I think we fed into their hand, if you will, and kind of let the game become a shootout instead of trying to obviously we don't want to slow it down and play that nonsense earlier, but to a certain extent I think we overcommitted too much the same way that they were, and it just felt like at a certain point was just nonstop back and forth, and it didn't really suit us very well. There's too many mistakes. I mean, mistakes on both sides too. There was tons of shots this game from both sides. On our side, the problem is only 2 of those shots were actually on target. And we just weren't clinical enough there.
I'm going to say something that's going to sound crazy, but I enjoyed that game. I enjoyed that game specifically for the reason that I didn't have to see a 0-0 where we only had 1 shot on target for the game. We only had 1 goal for the game. That game is what reminded me more about last season, where it feels like we sacrificed a little bit of our defense to try to have a more high octane offense. It could have been the way we stacked against El Paso. It could have been the way El Paso played their game plan. I'm not quite sure. But even though I left that match feeling just gut wrenched that we didn't get all 3 points, I felt more emotion in that match than I've in most of the games we've watched this season. When we get to say, "Oh, we only lost, 0-1," or it was a 0-0 draw. That game at least kind of brought back out the fire on both the positives and the negatives. I would like to see more games like that in the future and less of what we saw for a majority of the season.
I'm there with you. We've said earlier on, and I'd rather be losing these games 3-2 than watching a 0-0 draw.
And I stand by that. I honestly stand by that. That was a lot more fun. Tim says in the chat, the Guild was both the loudest and quietest. That is soccer, right? It's those moments of build up and those moments that kill you.
The ups and downs.
So I will say I enjoyed the game. Did not enjoy the fact that I feel like maybe. Do you think there was another game this season that we felt robbed of all 3 points?
I mean, so I would argue that I don't know if we were robbed. I think we were too sloppy. I also think that they're not I think they're beatable. And I think if anything, maybe we beat ourselves, but I wouldn't say that we did enough there. I think we're just too sloppy. But I can see why you would argue that. That feels like a beatable team. We fell into their trap and got too out of control. I mean, maybe you could argue there are some other results that maybe didn't go our way. Phoenix kind of felt early on somewhat similar to this game in a way where I could have saw a world where we beat Phoenix 2-1 or something like that, but we were too sloppy again. It's almost like coach can't find that balance between how to make this like a fun attacking team who is not open at the back, or they're just shut down defense, nothing happens.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Like
and
we need that middle ground.
and I think one of the big things to talk about in this game from a tactic standpoint, and I noticed it in the Miami game, but I saw it even more just apparent in this one, was we've moved away from a back three that sits as a line to help absorb like the pressure of an incoming press in that rotation. So when we move the ball back, typically our where it usually goes to the center back. It doesn't always happen that way, but our other center backs will drop down deeper, almost in like kind of creating the new line on the back, and then they'll start rotating the ball side to side, and then they'll gradually kind of swing the ball and they'll take that momentum back forward. In this game, we are now taking it, and the two center backs on the opposite sides of each of Karifa's sides, they're not dropping back. They're staying there, waiting for that ball to come back to them. So instead of us going out wide and then back up, there was a lot of vertical back and forth, which I haven't seen a lot of from this team. Again, reminiscent of 2024, where Karifa would get the ball. Of course, they would run back to a certain degree, like they weren't leaving him on an island, but then he would go immediately back forward, and then one of our defenders would then take the ball and then go further. We were moving the ball in transition faster and better than I have seen all season. And again, because it's such a small sample size, I don't know if that was because of just the way El Paso played, or if Kano has finally gotten them to a place where like this is where we're at in the system, and that's what we need to start doing.
I'd argue that we saw some similar play against Miami as well in the week before. It's just Miami, defended maybe.
No, I saw the same thing. I'm asking now, in 2 games, are we saying that this is a sample set? Is this enough data that we can say this is now what this team is trying to accomplish? Or was this 2 possession-based teams and Kano wanted to kind of get it right back into the middle versus allow the team to gain shape, composure, whatever it would be?
I mean, I think this is probably what we're trying to do going forward with the small amount of season that we have left.
I don't disagree. I will say, looking at not just the offensive side of things, it doesn't feel right to champion or celebrate Koke Vegas here, but we kind of have to also respect the fact that he really did keep the team in the game. He had 5 saves on the night, tied his league season high of 5 saves. He's only let in 3 goals in the last 6 games. There's a question down here. Will he still be in contention for Golden Glove? That's not a performance you want to have against you. I wonder how own goals are calculated. I mean, obviously a goal is a goal, but I wonder how those then also work to stack the deck against you. The big thing here is when we look at it, does Kano now adjust? Because we've seen him adjust from these moments where like he needs to tweak the offense, so he starts to kind of commit things or change a little bit. Does Kano feel comfortable that now the goals are coming, we just have to stabilize the back line, or will he go, I can't let any more goals. We're going back to what I was doing 3 games ago, and that's just how it's going to work?
I think that's more of a one-off. I think we just, like I said, fell into El Paso's trap. They're one of the higher scoring teams in the league. They're very aggressive on the wings. They're very tenacious. They really take it to you, and I think we just maybe kind of got caught up in ourselves. I think
we were vulnerable. We were vulnerable a little too often.
And I think part of it too is when we scored that own goal. After that, it felt like the team was trying to redeem themselves to like they felt like they could get another one, and they kept pushing and pushing and pushing.
You felt it. The fans felt it. They kept going after it. Everyone, for the first time in what I can think of all season, not even in the Jägermeister Cup, because in the Jägermeister Cup we were dominating a majority of those matches. You could feel the fan base like they were willing the goal to happen. They knew a goal was going to happen. We've heard at times like Kano say, if I just had a few more minutes, we could have probably gotten a second or a first goal. It felt several times like just through sheer willpower, Rhode Island FC was destined to score a 3rd goal. Now, granted, it came close a few times.
Yeah,
it just felt different.
The momentum kind of died there when Chumesi was down for about 2 minutes. And I think that kind of like it was enough time to cool everyone down. And then those last, because they ended up adding a little extra time. Those last 5, 6, 7 minutes, whatever they were pretty much a dead rubber. But it did feel like there was another goal in that game, whether or not it was going to be in our favor, because both teams were just going back and forth at each other.
So do you see this as defensive mistakes, or do you see this as the defense needs to learn? Because surprisingly, I look at we lost basically 2 aerial duels, if you think about it. One, Nadarse doesn't get in front of the ball to mark his defender in.
So not only was Nadarse there, I mean, if we want to be fair, also Bacharach, and JJ. All three of them were in front of Memo Diaz. All very tall dudes. One of them maybe would have jumped and kind of.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like we can't score a goal in the air to save our lives, but it's surprising to think that we couldn't put a body or a head in the space to make sure that didn't happen, because he wasn't running at massive speed. He wasn't running at massive movement.
I don't know if they just lost him. He was too small behind him, and they just kind of like lost someone lost their marker. But it was unfortunate when we look back at the own goal too.
It's a long ball. How many goals this season have we been scored on from a long ball? A simple long ball. Kano, Spratty, Ugarte, they all have said, McKay, they've all said, we cannot lose goals. We cannot lose position on a long ball. Like when is that going to stop?
Yeah, the problem too, you had Clay running back at goal, and he was trying to clear it between two players with his weaker foot, his left foot. I think he just kind of shanked it, and it was just an unfortunate kind of bounce there. That one I really chalk up to just kind of like, dumb luck on their side, and individual error mistake on our side.
Clay instinctually goes for the net every time. Yeah. You don't want his habits to go away. You just don't want to see him facing that direction. That's all. Now I'll ask you, with these kinds of mistakes, with these kinds of errors, is there something that needs to be said about the defense going into these critical 4 final games of the season? Is it just like sometimes you're going to have a bad day and you just got to shake it off? Or are these signs of something larger that needs to be corrected?
It's one game. If we have issues again this weekend, then we need to kind of reflect on it. But I mean, we shut down Miami, right? I mean, sure.
Wow, we shut down the last place team in the league.
Yeah, but they also, I mean, at the same time, they can score, right? Bonfilio still has a bunch of goals, and he scored when we talked about the preview, he's actually scored in all the games he had scored in the last like 2 months. None of them Miami had actually won. So they were still producing scoring opportunities. They just weren't closing up shop at the back.
Agreed.
So the fact that we were able to shut them down, I think shows that this is a bit of a one-off, unless we see kind of some more nonsense this weekend.
So we need better finishing and better defending, and we'll be the team everyone fears. Perfect. It's going to work great, I'm sure.
Is that how this sport works?
Just score goals and win games. It's easy. So let's get into this. We'll talk more at depth. Again, for those of you that don't remember the Monday mailbag format, this is just impressions. We'll pull apart some stuff for the Thursday show, get you ready for the Las Vegas Lights preview. But let's talk table standings, because I think that's pretty important right now. The draw, we knew, Jason, we knew how close Indy was behind us. We know how close Detroit was then in front of us. We knew that draws were most likely not going to get the job done for the rest of the season.
I'd also argue that most people didn't think that they were going to pull off a 1-0 win against
I did
Tulsa.
not see FC Tulsa losing to Indy 11. Indy 11 has one of the tougher schedules. I thought Tulsa would be a pothole for them to lose points, to drop points. Instead, they go and do something that not a lot of teams have done this season. It's frustrating because you go into that draw, you've got a point. It's a Friday night game, so you're going into the weekend going, oh man, we're still in the playoffs, but anything can happen.
Do you think there's any part of the fact that Tulsa's already clinched that maybe they eased up on the gas there a bit? I mean, I didn't watch the game, so I can't tell for sure, but sometimes that can be a symptom of maybe a younger team.
It's hard to say. It's a great question, because when you think about it, they've only clinched. They could still get dropped as far as 5th if they were to lose points. And I think it's San Antonio, if they won the rest of their games outright.
New Mexico and San Antonio aren't too far behind them.
Right. And I don't think Lexington could catch them, right? With 4 games left, that's 12. So, well, they could catch them. So FC Tulsa probably doesn't want to get into that behavior, because you start to take the competitive edge off. We've seen the top teams in this league go out in first or second rounds a lot of the time. Something happens where they kind of start to rest on their laurels and they think that they're untouchable, and then they get touched in the playoffs pretty hard, and they end up not where they want to be for that final magic of the cup run. I don't know if they backed down. Tulsa has been in a little bit of a staggered situation. They've got now 2 losses, 2 draws, and 1 win in their last 5. Maybe there's rotation. Because we didn't play them this year, I haven't really done a good enough preview. So in one blessing, it's like, hey, we didn't have to play. I mean, if you think about it, right? We talk about the teams that we will not end up seeing in this year. FC Tulsa, first place. Lexington, fifth place. Colo Spigs, eighth place. So that's 3 teams right there. Colo Spigs, everyone thinks they're going to have this renaissance moment in these last few games and make a closer push up. The only team that like we didn't get an opportunity against, and so by proxy right now, Orange County, but they're only one, they're just like us. They're literally in our position, 1 point outside the playoff line, could still be in it. So it's not like we were gifted with any of these teams that that were below the playoff line that we didn't get to see. So our schedule was harder. We've been kind of lucky in the fact that we didn't have to play some of the better teams in the Western Conference. So getting into this though now, Jason, 9th place. We're 1 point behind Indy 11. We're also just 1 point behind now Detroit City FC. I have told everyone Detroit is the team to watch for dropping points. Indy seems to be motivated, whereas Detroit seems to be regressing. I told you, and for listeners that want to go back and rewind the tape and listen to older episodes, I told you when we started worrying about the magic number that we needed probably 12 points out of the last 6 matches to secure a playoff berth. Right now, we're at 7 points out of that projection. We need at least then we need 5 technically, but you can't get 5 in 2 matches. So basically, we need to win 2 of our final 4 games here. Between these games, we've got Las Vegas Lights this weekend, Tampa Bay the following week, then we've got North Carolina and New Mexico. It kind of feels like, we talk about do or die all the time, but it feels like if we're going to get these points, it's in these next 2 weekends or it's not happening for this club.
Yeah, definitely going to have to pick up those last 2 home game wins, it feels like, to give ourselves an opportunity. With North Carolina, maybe you look at going, like, that's when you look at that and go away, okay, maybe this is one of those games where it's okay to try and play for a draw. And then similarly away to New Mexico too, who's in a decent position there in the West. It also really kind of comes down to either of those teams have anything left to play for, depending upon how the results pan out the next few weeks. Because then you could even find yourself in a position where you're like, no matter what the result of this game is, they're not going to move. So they might even just kind of look at resting, looking to the playoffs. So that could give us an opportunity to kind of get some smash and grab points there. But if you don't win these next 2 home games, then you put yourself in a desperate position where it literally is a must win, like, away. And I don't know if that's where we want to find ourselves against 2 teams in the upper half of the table at the end of the season.
I agree. And even though we're super excited for New Mexico for a lot of personal reasons, as well as just, the end of the season kind of watching, it's not a good position to know that you may need to go into the final game of the season desperate for 1 to 3 points. Like, that's not a place any Rhode Island FC fan or any RIFC player wants to be on the 26th of October. Talking through this then real fast before we get into these listener questions. Right now, if we were to sneak back into 8th place, it looks like we would probably go through Louisville. I mentioned this on last week's show. Louisville wants us. They want us so bad. Is there a reason to advocate that we can't just even settle on 8th? We got to settle for 7th so we can first go through Charleston and then work our way down whoever we beat after that?
I mean, I think we saw at the home game against Louisville, we won't make it easy for them. They beat us on a freak cross. You can't tell me that was a shot. That was a 0-0 game. That being said, if
they're the only team right now that has 5 wins in the last 5 matches, by the way. I don't think they can do wrong until they get to playoffs.
I think part of it is because there's less games, but I don't think there's no way they can actually beat their points record of last year.
No, they can't because of the missing 4 games from the Jägermeister Cup.
Yeah, but they're still a machine who just picks up results left and right. I would still think that that's going to be a very tough game for us. And I don't think we would be favorites at all in that. So
do you want to get to 7th? Like, do we need to push the envelope a little bit more and make sure that we get Charleston?
Is it any better to play in Charleston, though?
I mean, we've done it. We've beaten them this year. Granted, it wasn't at home, but you could even argue that was the first game of the season. So,
well, no, that was when we lost. We beat them at home.
No, I know, but I'm saying we've beaten them at home in the playoffs, and the first game of the year was there. It was just a repeat of the Eastern Conference final. you almost can say there was no lessons learned in that match. I would feel like you may want you may want to just fight for one extra point, which is all that it's separating it right now. We'll see how the rest of the table shakes out by the end. You may want to try to go for 7th. I know it's weird because, like we just said, could we even make the playoffs? But with 7th and 8th that close, you may want it. You may want it more than you realize. What I'll be really curious about is watching this Pittsburgh situation. Hartford, they look poised to be able to take 4th place and get a home playoff game, something we could only dream of at this point. I mean, they could only dream of too. They've never done it in 6 years. But if it sticks, they could almost potentially end up playing Pittsburgh in the opening round of the playoffs. And given everything that's going on between those two teams right now, that could be the match of the season, just for the vitriol alone. So it'll be really curious to see. This is scary though. We are now on the outside. We're looking in, and we can't see through them. So I still have faith. I think a lot of the fandom does after this most recent match, but right now it's kind of like you're holding your breath, right? You're waiting to see what happens. We'll preview that Vegas matchup. These are two very similar teams, with the only difference being Vegas is in a much more terrible position. But when you look at like the play style, the defensive nature of these teams, again, it doesn't feel like it because you get to say, oh, these teams are so good defensively. They both struggle, unfortunately, from massive opportunities when it comes to the offense. So let's get into these listener questions, have some fun with this, and go from there. So Bob D writes in, has the RIFC offense recently shown some signs of life, or are we going to have to continue to count on more own goal victories?
I think that the offense has shown some sign of life. We talked about a little bit earlier here in the pod about the way the team has been a little bit more aggressive and kind of passing and moving. There's not been as much like lingering on the ball. They've been much more willing to pass the ball to one of their teammates and then just immediately make a run. And you've seen these on both of the wings, and they've tried through the middle a little bit. And I think it's starting to click a little bit. I think the more issue here would be, is it too little too late? I think we're poised to sneak into the playoffs, but like we just talked about, it might set up us for a kind of nightmare scenario where we're going to have to play one of the two best teams in the league.
We think back to JJ Williams and how hot he got going into the final stretch of games before the playoffs. Is there a world where you could see JJ Williams somehow getting to double digits before the end of the regular season? We could even say in goal contributions.
I mean, if we recreate a goals galore against Las Vegas, maybe
they've lost some bad games.
They've had some really big losses. So, I mean, if we could put up 4, 5, 6 against them,
and they're all just JJ's,
and JJ's got 2 or 3, maybe that could give them the confidence to, get close to 10, or maybe even if we have somewhat of a playoff run, get to those double digits. I think we've just been floundering too much in attack for anyone to legitimately get to double digits, though.
So you don't see a path where there's any way?
He has 4?
Yeah, he has 4 goals.
So 6 goals in 4 games. I mean, obviously I would love for that to happen. It's just, I haven't seen it from this team. I think if anything, we're looking at, can we now score 2 goals a game?
I was hoping that some player was now at 5 or 6 across the total contribution line. Still at 4. Actually, no, hold on. That's not true. We're at 5. We're at 5 with Maxi and Chico. So but Maxi, we don't know his status. We'll talk about that in a second. Chico doesn't seem like he can get a start to save his life. So I don't think this could be a bad stat by the end of the time. No player in the 2025 campaign got a double-digit contribution, whether assist or goal. That's going to leave some questions for Kano at the end of the season on how to fix that for the next time around.
Yeah, next one here. Sean S. says, just discovered your show. Are Koke's chances at Golden Glove shot with the recent draw against El Paso?
So, if you, Sean, welcome to the family. If you remember, I hope you watched the last episode then where we were talking about it's goals against average. So it's the amount of goals conceded based on the number of minutes that the keeper plays. Koke has had a reduced schedule this year, so in a weird way, the smaller the number of appearances can hurt you as you start to open up more goals conceded. It's a law of averages there. Koke still has the least amount of goals conceded in the league. However, it's only now 1, but I don't know what his minute ratio is compared to Loss and Vidiello.
Just gave up a goal. They lost this weekend.
So Vidiello should be up to like 20 goals conceded. Loss should be up to 17 or 18. And then Koke would now be at 16 from this most recent game. So the difference will then become, though, 1, what are the minutes averages, which I haven't done those calculations. I will before the end of the season. And then 2, would the league even give, keep goalkeeper of the year to a team that doesn't make the playoffs?
I mean, like if we somehow kept 4 shutouts in a row, maybe. Because that would be a very impressive way to end the season. And at that point, you would probably guarantee that his average are probably the best, considering the other teams maybe still have some kind of bigger fights to put out than we do.
Sure. I'm almost curious, looking at the stats. We know that in the Golden Boot for is Cal Jennings still at the front of the goals? Let's see. Cal Jennings is at 16. So, and Myers is right behind him at 13. So there's no Philip Goodrum is at 12. I don't think he'll catch Jennings by the end of the season. So Louisville probably not going to be able to get Golden Boot. Assist wise, that's Juan Torres's all the way. Aiden Quinn could make a meal of it by the end. It's hard to tell. So then when you think about it, like of the 3 big awards that they give, like right there, it feels like Damian Loss may be perfectly positioned to get the golden glove for Louisville. Hard to say, but more to come as we watch that unfold. So I'll do the minute management divisions and see how that works against goals conceded, and kind of put that in maybe in the next mailbag or one of the next shows there. Matt Jean writes in, we scored goals. What's up with that? We kind of already talked about it, but do you think this will continue? I guess that's the bigger thing. Like, we've demonstrated now for the first time in a long time. Can we keep doing this?
With Las Vegas Lights coming up? I think so.
Even though they have one of the better defenses in the league, allegedly?
Yeah, they're too often where they get like absolute beatdowns that I don't know if I buy that. I think that they've maybe, clicked on certain games or certain things have happened in the right time. But, I think that we're going to continue to score goals. It's just going to be whether or not if it's going to be enough, and whether or not there's any actual issue with their defense or if that was just a one-off.
Do you know what Las Vegas Lights' best stat is on the season?
I don't know, something like clearances or saves or something.
Long ball accuracy. They're going to be doing a lot of Route 1 on the day, which we've demonstrated we're great at in this last match. So that will be really exciting. They actually have the worst goals conceded per match line, again, because they've had so many of these games where they've been completely blown out, and then they have a string of really good clean sheets. It's like feast or famine on the defensive side of things. I'll be curious if we go back. Maybe we'll try to do that for the Thursday show. Find out if there's like key players that are injured at times, so it just completely
see if there's anything that
team.
Kind of any sort of connecting threads to figure out why they have these really bad losses.
Look at us talking show notes for the next show on our current show. How does that work? What's our next question?
Taras here says, how do you think Kano feels about Maxi posting that video? And then also 2-part here. What do you think our chances of making the playoffs are?
I don't think Kano cares. There are rules. So that video is not just immediately made available. That's an analytics video from Michael or Mikhail, and so that's set up as they're doing training. If he went to go request it, there's probably most likely some sort of chain of custody. Communications has to be alerted to why they want the video. The team technical staff would be alerted to it. He would not just give it. There are photos. They take still photos all the time, and there's an entire index of player. They can type their name into this SharePoint, and they get every photo they've ever been attached to, so they can build their brand, yada yada. For videos, it's a little bit different when it's not the game day tape. Practice tape is just kind of a little bit more protected. I have a feeling that for him to get that, he's doing it in a kind of a sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, kind of haha, find the beauty of the moment. I don't think Kano would be upset with that at all. I think more realistically, because there's no context provided behind that video, it's more frustrating for fans, because I had reached out, someone asked, I think maybe Ryan, about what was the status update, because we haven't been to a practice. There has been no media day since it's been back-to-back away games. So we reached out to, want to find out what is this injury. We were told upper body. When I saw that video, when I got that confirmation maybe like an hour before, when you look at that video, did you see it? Okay, so
I don't
Hugo,
have Insta.
Hugo,
so
you got to get an Instagram account so everyone can become your best friend on there. So Hugo runs, they're in a set piece practice tactic, and I forget who Maxi's marking, maybe Georgia, and Hugo just comes in full Miley Cyrus like a wrecking ball and just comes in from off screen and goes, and Maxi takes a step towards the box, and Hugo's already at full speed tracking a runner. Maybe it was Kareef. I don't know. He was tracking a bigger guy. And Tim rightfully says head is upper body, but Tim, head is usually also classified as a head injury. So Hugo comes through and just demolishes. He clips him on the shoulder. They go shoulder to shoulder, spins Maxi like a top, and Maxi just falls immediately to the ground with the he fell, like the gravitational pull of the spiral turn threw him straight into the ground. It was a pretty rough contact. We're still not clear if it's a head injury, if it's a shoulder injury. I immediately thought, kind of going where I saw what happened with Stephen Turnbull at the Indy game last year in the middle of the playoffs, like, oh man, that's a shoulder blade, that's a shoulder issue, that's the rest of the regular season now at this point. If it's just like a head, like concussion protocol, and they had to wait the amount of time, like, the thing is he's now missed 2 games. So we know that it was a Friday game this week and it was a Friday game last week. So that head injury would have happened on Thursday at the absolute latest. No, it couldn't have been. They were already traveling. We saw them on Thursday. Wednesday. So what's the protocol to be able to get on a plane from a head injury? Yeah, so the chat here is telling me don't block with your head in the future. And everyone's starting to have like and that's the thing. We won't report on what it is until my fear is it's a dislocation or some sort of shoulder injury that would basically put him out for the rest of the season. My guess is it's a head injury, and this was the precautionary part where like he can't fly and he just didn't clear fast enough to get enough minutes to practice with the team. So if we see him next week, we'll know. Well, I guess when we see him on Sunday, we'll know all of our problems all our fears are alleviated. If we don't see him, I don't think we'll see Maxi for the rest of the season. So this, again, another do or die situation here. And, Connor listens to this, so he'll probably just not put him on and just to mess with everyone now because we've made that declaration. But so I don't think Connor's mad about that. I am concerned that we can't get some transparency now that we've seen the injury. That's a little bit frustrating. As for the chances of making the playoffs, Taras, I still think we're going to make the playoffs. I'm not going to percentage it down to like 62% on a harvest moon. I'm not going to do any of that. However, like, again, you look at our teams. We already kind of talked about it. Las Vegas and Tampa, we have to win these games. North Carolina, I can see us getting a draw out of that. Like, North Carolina's trying to hold on to a home playoff berth. They're going to be at home. They could just make it really cagey and difficult. New Mexico, they are a weird team. Like, they do really well in moments, and then they just kind of hold on in others. But by and large, they've been a very good team this season. I don't know that we'd get points there. I don't even know why we're traveling to go watch this game, Jason, when we know we may lose that one.
We made the plans before we knew how this year was going to pan out.
Didn't we think though that like we knew that this game has significant consequence and it's like do or die for us. Anyways, Indy on the other hand, now ahead of us, they still have Lou City, Pittsburgh, Loudoun. So they have 3 teams that are going to be extremely tough. Whether you call Lily Ball tough or not, that's your choice. Orange County, they're basically us right now in the West, so they're very much still in the hunt, but they're on the outside, so they're scrappy. They're going to be hungry. Detroit's the team to watch. Again, last week I said it. They lost their game this weekend against Lou City. Now they have North Carolina, they have Loudoun, and they have Charleston. Those are all going to be tough games.
And Tampa Bay, who's also
and then Tampa Bay on final day, who that could be a do or die for them. So they could be the scrappiest possible. And then I said Tampa Bay had an easy season. I'll throw them in too. They do have Monterey, but then they have us, then they have Hartford, and then they have Detroit. So Tampa, I think if we shut them down, they may just say like, okay, play the younger squad. Like, we have nothing left to play for. It'll be difficult to see. So those things will kind of have to see how they shake out. I still see a world where Detroit drops out of the playoffs and both us and Indy advance, but I won't put a percentage on it because right now, let's wait until we get past Tampa Bay and our home matches, and then I'll really weigh in on what I think percentage-wise we're going to make here. Leo asks the question, what has changed over the course of the last few weeks to begin reinvigorating this offense? Has it been the positioning, the individuals on the team stepping up, or something else?
It's a combination of things. I think the team's been a little more direct, right? We haven't seen as much passing around the back. You talked about it earlier, where we've seen a lot of times where one of the center backs would receive the ball and normally they would turn around and pass to Koke. Instead, they're looking for some sort of pass to try and break the lines and get it to someone else. And we've seen a lot of pass and move that we just haven't seen this season, where a player will get the ball, they'll only take a few touches to find a player nearby, pass it, and they'll move. It's like when you're playing FIFA, whatever, you L1 and pass and whatever, and you just kind of keep trying to cycle your way up the field. On top of that, probably is a bit of individual stepping up. I think that they all know that this is kind of a do or die time. This is the end of the season. There's we're backed into a corner at this point, and we have to put out results or we're not going to make it into the playoffs.
Agreed.
Brad here, L, says, was this a better game or a worse game than other recent performances?
I think this was a better game. I know it's hard to say it. I think we touched on it a little earlier. I enjoyed this. Now, performance wise, we haven't gotten into the stats well enough to dictate the technical terms of it. If it was, I think Kano saw something that this team had the hunger to go out and try to go for a victory. My favorite stat still remains untouched. Now 24, 25 games where when we score first, we've never been beaten. It remains intact. I got scared there for a minute, but it's still there. I think right now this team does better mentally knowing that they scored goals and fought it out than to have a 0-0 where they can't find, like, the answers here. Like, they can say, hey, like, next time just don't do an own goal, and like that's a lot easier to walk away from than to say, like, why can't we find a way to score? So I think mentally, I think tactically, I think they did really well. They just need to kind of be a little more clinical and lock down games a little bit better. But like right now, if we got more of this, I think we'd be in a good place. Obviously, we need 2 wins out of the next 2, but like I think the team's in a better place than they were after the other matches.
Yeah, I think they've been doing a little bit better here in regards to the attack. We just need to see it continue.
Rachel M writes in, you tweeted that we should have won that game. Should the players be taking this as a victory outside of this fluke moment? And will Koke stop playing so high up the pitch?
First one, easy one. Koke will not stop playing so high up the pitch. It's just the type of, he's a sweeper keeper. And we've seen that we play better with him on the field. He just matches the style better. So it's just something we have to get used to. We touched upon this a little earlier too, in regards to, like, should we have won this game? I think there's a little bit better of a possibility if we weren't making some kind of defensive errors that the team really hasn't shown recently, right? How many clean sheets did Koke pick up in the, like,
6 out of the last 7 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that before this match. So I think they can still hold their heads high and still take the positives from this match and say, we still picked up a point. We still have opportunities to go out there and, take it one game at a time and just control your own destiny, win the games that you can in front of you, and see what you can do for the rest of the year. We have one here from, is this Amy? It's not Ame asking about why.
I typed that wrong. That was Amy. Yeah. Not Ame.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's funny.
I had Ame on the brain when I wrote that. Yeah.
Is he asking why he wasn't? So Amy here says, do you know why Mabika was unavailable on Friday?
I don't know yet. We did put out a request because for the people that, really get into the details, Ame did not travel down with the team. And I have it on record talking to multiple members of the staff that Machu and Dongo is only supposed to go into these kinds of situations when a player is not available. They don't see him as a player that will create a difference making opportunity. He's more of just a bench spot or a roster fill when they are light. But Mabika was also not listed on the availability report. And while I have said this multiple times, it is not simply just the injury report. Sometimes it is just also the availability report. His name was not included in that. So that leaves kind of a head scratcher of, was he injured? Did he have a birthday? Did he have something he had to go do?
Or something? Yeah.
Maybe. What exactly happened that Mabika could not make this match? He was in a video for the team doing season ticket member calls, thanking renewals, season ticket members. So I'm not quite sure why he wouldn't have traveled down. The club has not made that information available to me. I will find out, however, on Thursday when I go watch the team. So I will let you guys know by then, probably in a tweet, on what exactly that status was with Mabika. But it was a good point. I'm glad people caught that because that was a bit of a surprise. I thought maybe we had too many defenders and he didn't want to bring that many. But you would want a player like Mabika on your bench over, Ndongo, considering how many of our defenders can get up there. That just doesn't quite fly. Next question here, Barbara O. And I think this is a couple because I got these in the email submission back to back. So I think if you guys are brother and sister, if you're a couple, let me know the next time you reach out. But Barbara O writes in, can you run us through next year's expansion plans across the league? I'm new to the sport and it's hard to pay attention to who's going to be in the championship. So Jason, I broke it down, and this is all subject to change, right? Like, but let's give Barbara the heads up on who might be coming into the league.
Yeah, so we've got some we've got Brooklyn FC here. They've not announced their head coach yet, which
I have a bet with a CBS official that they are not coming into the league. And that CBS official said, I don't want to take your money, as if he knew something. But I am telling you right now, to not have a coach announced for that team, and you have been online for a year already, a year plus with the women's game. You've been in the league now for 3 years, and you don't have a head coach going into October.
I don't have a lot of faith in that.
I don't believe they're coming. I do not believe they're coming online. But this guy said it with so much confidence that, like, you got to know. But he didn't outright say it because I think he'd get in trouble, especially because he didn't say anything like off the record to me. But I just, how do you not have a coach yet? How do you not do that and then be ready to play next season? That's bonkers to me.
I don't know. We also got a Sporting Jacks. Similar thing here.
They just entered the women's team, but they don't have a head coach.
So it's really weird. Like 2 teams. But from there, that's all that is projected for 2026. But when we look up to 2027, Atletico Dallas, they actually just had some complications with one of their complex. So their
training facility, administrative building, and public soccer park is not online anymore. Like the city of Garland said, no, that's not going to happen. They're going to play at the Cotton Bowl, which I think is a terrible. Like, why would you play in a college football? Like, what are we doing here? Like,
yeah, I want to say,
have we not learned the lessons of our past?
I want to say it was Kaler, but it could have been someone else. And the USL subreddit was just like, or not the Discord was like, these teams need to stop announcing themselves unless they actually have a stadium. Okay. Like, don't waste our time. We don't even, who knows if any of this is going to happen. But also the Oklahoma City Thunder is now going to become a soccer team.
Again, they were the OKC Energy before.
OKC Energy, yeah.
So they seem to be on track. They have a plan. They have a stadium project. They're ready to go. So that'll be, they say 2027. I forgot one in the list. The other one is Santa Barbara Sky. They have been rather quiet, other than some like social media commentary posts in their Instagram account and their TikTok account. They haven't really announced any expansion of technical team. They've brought in like community member spotlights, but still no head coach from them either. And it's like, what are we doing here? Like, Rhode Island was the most recent expansion. Why are you guys not following in our footsteps of learning what you're supposed to do when you come into the champ? We set a pretty good blueprint of what you're supposed to do, and we stole most of that homework from Louisville. So, like, what is going on here with these teams? Why is the league accepting this level of mediocrity? It's very weird.
Yeah, and then we haven't really heard anything from Iowa or Milwaukee either.
Those projects are dead. Those projects
who knows what those are. But yeah, so like you mentioned, though, this kind of ties into another question here from maybe a relative here, Andy O. Thoughts on all the expansion news last week? Is it a good thing or a bad thing that so many former markets are returning?
Yeah, it's weird. We're in like this zombie apocalypse revival, theater here of, first it was the Cosmos making the big announcement that they were coming back. Some people love it. Some people hate it. It's like the Cosmos have like this kiss of death thing going on in all the leagues they've come back to. In addition to that, Memphis announced a couple weeks ago they were bringing back some sort of USL team. Everyone thinks it might be a USL 2 team.
Yeah, USL 2 is what they're kind of aiming for.
Right. But now in other zombie markets, Brownsville, which is a suburb of Rio Grande Valley, so RGV are coming back in some sort of capacity. You've got Reno now returning. They haven't announced what division they'll be in, but a Reno project will be here. They have a stadium site, like land in downtown or downtown adjacent that they're looking to bring into. This one's interesting. Firestone, Colorado. Sweet name. Didn't even know it existed.
It's a brewery is from there, right? Or is
That's Firestone Walker in California, isn't it?
Okay.
That's Santa Barbara Skies territory. But anyways, that's more Hailstorm. That's the Colorado Hailstorm, the team that they ripped out of the league.
Okay.
So this feels like this is like USL. Like, we still want this market, but we don't trust you, Hailstorm. So we're gonna bring our own team in. And then technically, if you want to get really specific,
rotate suburbs.
Fort Lauderdale, the Strikers used to be there. That was a famous team. So the Fort Lauderdale team is coming into USL 1 next year. So it's fun to see these zombie projects come back from the dead. Curious to know quite how they'll pull it off in round 2 Electric Boogaloo here, but it is fun. In terms of the championship markets, you just said it a second ago, like, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of room in the expansion side, like, that hasn't already been announced. There's a list. If you go on USL Tactics, there's a long list of all the other different markets. Like, there's New Orleans was still a project. Buffalo was a project at one point. Roswell was a project at one point. So there's all these other areas. And again, it all ties back into the USL vice chair of real estate. It's like Nick Papadakis or whatever. He's been going on a tour around like LinkedIn and all the soccer business networks, that there's this list of 70 cities that have been identified as viable USL markets. And so much so that they are looking at it from a real estate package and opportunity. They just had Bell Tower come in as an investment group, made a sizable investment. People are thinking this is kind of the coin purse they're going to need, similar to like the Apple deal for MLS, to get all of this pyramid and the pro rail system off the ground for 2028. Interestingly enough, this Bell Tower investment, direct ties to Brett Johnson and our group that have stood up the Tidewater Landing entirety of its area. So not just the Centerville Bank Stadium, but that whole Tidewater Landing revitalization project with all the mixed use. It's the same company. So like, Brett Johnson kind of just, again, expanding his vision there with Dan Krober and partners. So that's exciting to see. But overall, like, there's other markets. There's the Boise market, Riverside, California got announced today, or not today, but a couple of weeks ago, and then Pensacola. So there are soccer markets everywhere. Andy, we could go over it in length. Happy to have a discussion. But for what matters now in the championship, this could be a very slow season in 2027. I know a lot of people thought with World Cup this was the time. I'm surprised more teams aren't trying to come in for the 2026 into 2027 window, because you would think you would want to strike while the iron's hot with all that soccer appetite. But right now, like, I don't see a single one of these teams coming online during one of the busiest summer. And maybe that's a blessing too, right? Maybe like, you don't want to compete with FIFA in the World Cup. I don't know, but it'll be interesting nevertheless. People have also asked on the Discord, like, how many teams could we have in potential? Would it be, 70 teams? Then if there's 70 markets, I think the league's still going to try to cap at 50 teams. We know Division 1 in 2028 will be between 12 to 14 teams for the first few years. So lots of stuff to talk about there. But what's our last question of the night?
And the last one here from Tim M. Have you heard anything about the CBA negotiations? Are we looking at a possible strike or lockout? I believe you mentioned a potential interview with a union official that was going to take place when negotiations are completed. Is that still likely to happen? Does the team have a local rep?
Lots of questions from Tim asking the business side of things. I will say we will be having that interview with the USLPA representative. It should be the second week of October, so we will drop it before Halloween as our player interview of the week because that person is a player as well. I don't want to say their name in case they don't actually come to the interview and they bring someone else, but we will have it. It should be probably one of the most downloaded episodes, because we've been talking about this isn't a fluff interview. This is we really want to get to the heart of the matter of what's important for the USLPA, as well as just the players themselves. As for the teams reps are Clay Holstead and Amos Shapiro Thompson. So now that this is all kind of hitting a flashpoint with the Players Association asking for fans and the players themselves to block USL Championship on all social media, I intend to reach out to Amos and Clay at the next media session to kind of understand what's their responsibility in it. How do they feel both personally and as the representatives of Rhode Island FC, and what would they like to see happen through the course of these negotiations? But it's not a good look that we're this far into the end of the season and we haven't made progress on some basic things. The league wants to be Division 1 here in just a short few years. they should be further along in this. Like, and I don't think that the players union is asking for a lot of things here, Jason. They want healthcare and maybe not maybe, but a bump in wages. Like, that's not really. If you're going to go D1, you should be able to accommodate these things at a league level. So I don't know what else is going into it. I don't know if they want a longer contract or a shorter contract. I think this one was a length of like 6 years. Like they gave it a long runway so that they had time to move on before the next negotiation. If they did another longer contract, then they have to start calculating things in for Division 1 play. Like, how do you even plan for that yet? Like, this has to probably be a 2-year contract and then go back to the table again right after Division 1 goes online.
Yeah, I think that it's going to have to be a little shorter, because then you're going to have to see, okay, how does Division 1 change things, so that we can maybe look at kind of renegotiating how that deal pans out for us.
Agreed. But yeah, so look forward to that interview in the near future. And until then, it'll be a good time. But hey, this has been a fun show. Feels we're gonna get under an hour. Like, what is that? Like, who are we? Look at us.
Guess that's what happens when we start late. We're like, oh, it's
time for bed. We've probably already put everyone to bed anyway, so it's perfectly fine.
All right. Well, hey, thanks everyone for joining us on another Monday Mailbag. Make sure to check out our friends over at the Blazing Musket for all of your New England soccer coverage. It's including RFC at theblazingmusket.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky at RAFC Podcast. We have an Instagram at Racing Anchor, and then you can always go check out our website, racinganchorpodcast.com. Anchors up, y'all. Catch you on Thursday.
Anchors up, everyone. We will see you later.